Hello, my name is Bruce Starr, and welcome to the show. I'm a television and radio talk show host and producer, as well as a leadership and relationship coach and trainer. And you're going to learn more about me at my bodytraders.com website. And today, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine and fellow entrepreneur, Bennett Davison. Bennett played at the University of Arizona back in 1997, 98, and while he was there, he won an NCAA national championship and a 98 Pac-10 championship. He played under Coach Luke Olson and played with players like Mike Bibby, Jason Terry, and Miles Simon. Bennett ended up playing in Europe for 12 years, 5 years in the EuroLeague, and played elsewhere but Africa and the Middle East. Played everywhere but Africa and the Middle East. He has taken his basketball career and now has created Euro Hoop Life. It is a hub for international players, and he's going to go more into that in just a few minutes. I'm very excited to have a national college champion, former pro basketball player, and now pro player consultant and advisor, Bennett Davison, with me. Welcome to the show, Bennett. Great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So there's so many things that I want to ask you, and I look forward to getting to know more about you. But first, I always want the viewers to learn the very, very basics and necessities. Where were you brought up, and how and when did you first get interested in basketball?
It's kind of a long story, and I'll make it as short as possible. Actually, I didn't really play all that much basketball. The first time I touched a basketball, I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. Mom got me in a little bitty basketball. You know, the hoops are 10 feet, and the little bitty basket hangs about 8 feet. Played in the game, and we lost all the first 8 games. In the last game, I had 20 out of the total 22 points of our team, and we won. But I was more into soccer. I grew up in Santa Barbara, and soccer was my sport. I was a high-energy kid. Sitting around the house just drove my mom crazy, so she always told me to go outside, go kick a ball around, go throw something, and that's what I did. So I was played soccer all the way from the ages of 5 years old all the way up till probably 14, and it just kind of came one day where, well, I'm 6'5", 6'7". I'm a big, tall, skinny kid, built like an olive on a toothpick, and my feet started growing. So I started kicking the ground more than I did the actual soccer ball. So I said, hey, maybe I should try a different sport. So I started getting into baseball, tried football, tried basketball, and realized that basketball was just a lot easier because I was a lot closer to the rim, obviously. In doing so, just came from a small town. Me and my parents, they got remarried, and grew up in a small town of Sebastopol. It's about an hour north of San Francisco. About 6,000 hippies. All the women have hairy legs and hairy armpits, and you can smoke the clothes when you're done wearing them. So it's kind of came from a small, very kind of close niche community where not a lot of exposure was going on, but it was a great small town where you could ride your bike into town and didn't have to worry about anything but getting Foster's freeze and hanging out with your friends, riding bikes and playing baseball. So I grew up in a very small, close-knit community.
And when did you start playing? Did you play in high school?
I played in junior college. Actually, obviously before junior college, I played in high school. Played in 6th grade, I think was my first year. It was a tiny little gym. It was kind of like a gym like this, and the court was about this big. So it was one of those things where you're sitting on the edge of the bench, you're sitting against the wall, and your toes are on the court. So it was a little small, and during school time, it was a cafeteria and a stage. So it's kind of like one of those small little church gym courts and stuff. But yeah, I played in 6th grade, was just trying to figure out, couldn't dribble the ball very well. Continued to play in junior high school, and then high school kind of got a little bit more serious, stepped away from playing soccer, and it was just kind of just one of those things you fall in love with, and it was just like my first passion was soccer, and then it transferred over to basketball.
Did you see yourself playing college basketball? How did that come about?
It was kind of a funny story. Back when we lived in Santa Barbara and my parents were divorced, we've drove up to San Francisco to visit some friends and family, and there was you know where Pier 39 is in San Francisco?
Yes.
So there was a wish candle, and so we went into the store, and they had all these cool little different colored rainbow wish candles, and my mom said, hey, let's get one of these things. And so we took them back home. Me, Mom, and my sister sat around the table and says, hey, we're going to put our thoughts and our wishes out into the air. And so my sister's, 4 years old, and she's like, I want to be a princess, and blew out the candle. And I said, I want to be a professional soccer player, and blew out the candle and put it out into the universe. And it's kind of weird how you remember those little things at 4, 5, 6 years old, and it just kind of came that it wasn't soccer, it just happened to be basketball. Yeah, so it was always a passion of mine. I always knew that I was going to do something physical, and sports came very easy to me.
Now, I know you ended up at Arizona, but it's not where you started out.
No. I started out, went to, a lot of the things that I've always done, I've always been very proactive in my life. At the same time, my parents instilled that in me. So coming from a small town of 6,000 hippies, I had a couple of, cassette tapes, the big bulky cassette tapes. We had jumped in a car and we went down to University of San Francisco. We went to St. Mary's, Cal, Stanford, Santa Clara, and said, hey, coach, you knock on the door, do you have a scholarship? And they said, that's not really how it works. We gotta kind of look for you. But being a small town, nobody knew exactly where I was. So they said, okay, well, can you give us some advice or some direction if this isn't something that you want to pursue and having me on your team? So they said, go to a junior college. I went to a junior college down in San Jose, California, West Valley, with Coach Burton. And 3-4 months later, ended up becoming the #1 JC player in the nation. And guess who was knocking on my door? USF, St. Mary's, Santa Clara, Cal, Stanford said, hey, you want to come sign a scholarship with us? I said, wasn't I just knocking on your door a few months ago? So I stayed 2 years in junior college, went to 2 state championship games, and had a great experience. I think I was a pile of clay when I arrived at West Valley, and I was a grown man when I left there. It was a great 2 years for me.
That's spectacular. And it's one thing to play college ball, and it's quite another thing to bring it to such an elevated level
Very
that
much
you
so.
find yourself being either one of few of the best teams in the whole country, or were you actually the best team in the whole country?
Well, in the junior college, it's kind of segregated. In the college, it's the whole United States. In the JUCO, or the junior college, it's more of just a statewide. So there's a Northern California, Southern California, and we were ranked the top team in all of junior college. And so once I left there, it was kind of like one of those things where I could pick and choose the college that I wanted to go to. So I ended up I remember this one story. My coach came in, and he didn't want to kind of get my head he kept my ego down. I didn't have much of an ego to begin with, but at the same time, he wanted to keep it under control. So he'd always come into the thing and hand out, into the meeting and hand out letters from Santa Clara and Crichton and all these other schools to all these other players. And so I'm sitting there like, I'm supposed to be the #1 player in the nation. I'm not getting any letters, and what's going on here? And so one day he comes in with this box, like a Xerox paper box, whatever, and says, all right, Craig, here's your letter from Santa Clara, or Aaron, here's your letter from this school. And I was like, man, what am I going to get? So this is my beginning of my sophomore year, and he picks up this box and says, Bennett, these are yours. I look in, and there's Georgetown, Duke, North Carolina, Oklahoma State, every Pac-10 school, and there was just letters saying, hey, we're thinking about you. I please hope you choose the University of Arizona or Oregon or Georgetown. So it's just kind of like one of those things. It's like, wow, this is actually something that when you get feedback, it's very good and reaffirming, letting people know that, letting yourself know that, yeah, I am doing something good here. And
how did you choose Arizona?
This is actually a funny story. I actually told, I was fishing with Coach Olson and Tom Tolbert the other day up in Fort Bragg, and it's like, Bennett, why did you choose Arizona? And I said, well, it's honestly the dumbest little things that kind of do this. So I ended up going to, as a junior college, I was a transfer, or I went down to my recruiting visit. On my recruiting visit, it ended up putting us up in a hotel. They pick you up at the airport. They put you in a hotel. I walked around, kind of got settled in. You had a few practice gears and maybe a pair of shoes and some simple stuff. Going to the bathroom, I'm just relaxing. I sit on the toilet and I look up, and there's a telephone sitting on the wall right next to the toilet, and I was like, man, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. I picked up the phone, said, Mom, you'll never guess what. I'm coming to Arizona. They got a telephone sitting right next to the toilet. I was just like, all right, you made your decision, son. So I stayed there for another 2 days, came back, and didn't even go on to the other recruiting visits, like Oregon and Oklahoma State. So it was the toilet was the deciding factor of why I chose Arizona, and it was a good environment. I love the heat. Just good overall town, basketball town.
And then you managed to be a part of something that just everyone alive dreams of.
Very much so. It was a national championship. We finished the Pac-10. We finished in 4th or 5th place, and it was one of those things. In sports, there's those peaks and valleys, and we hit a valley at the end of our Pac-10, and then we just hit the peak right when the tournament was going. We had no seniors. There was how many juniors? There was 2 or 3 juniors, 2 sophomores, and all freshmen. And we went in there, and the toughest game was honestly the first 2, just getting out of that role. And then we beat Kansas with Paul Pierce, Rafe LaFrance, Jacques Vaughn. Then we beat Providence. Then we came and beat North Carolina, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, Ed Cota, Shammond Williams. And then we beat Kentucky in an overtime game. And it was just one of those things that we all, after the game, we got in the locker room, got on the bus, went back to the hotel, and we're sitting on the bus, and we're saying, all right, you're kind of thinking of this game's over. Who do we play next? He's like, who do we play next? Everyone's like, holy crap, we're the #1 team in the nation? It's like one of those things that doesn't really set in until you're around the fans. Then you're such as a basketball athlete, you're always kind of, what's next? Okay, we already did this. We lost. How do we adjust things? How do we tweak? But you're just like, this is the last game of the 1997 season. It was just kind of a euphoric feeling until we got around the fans, and it was just nothing but chaos and excitement and family and friends and girlfriends and kids, and it was great.
Well, I don't remember too many other times when Arizona was national champion.
We've been there close. There's a couple Final Fours, and they've always had good teams, but when you got 64 teams and you're going closer, just to be that last one, it's a hard hustle.
Unbelievable. Well, there's nothing better than that, and only a handful of 15 players can say that they were national champions that year. So then it was time to move on, just like everybody else moves on from college. Mm-hmm. Tell me what happened next.
Obviously I wasn't a key player. I was a great role player. I played with top players. Mike Bibby, Jason Terry, Miles Simon, Michael Dickerson, A.J. Bramlett, Gene Edgerson, Josh Pastner. We had a lot of talented players, and I was a great role player. I mean, I maybe averaged 9.6 rebounds, but at the same time, I had the ability to go off and play, and they could see that. So I entered the draft, wasn't drafted. Truth be told, I was an undersized 4. In the NBA, I'm about 6'7", 220, and I was an undersized 4 and an underskilled 3. So I ended up making a life over in Europe. Ended up going to a couple exposure camps and ended up traveling over to Istanbul, Turkey, and playing for my first team, Galatasaray in Istanbul. So that was the lead way to a 12-year career. Played 5 years in the EuroLeague. So it kind of came from Istanbul, Turkey. Went back and did the summer league with the Grizzlies. I went to Australia, played with Andrew Gaze and Leonard Copeland. Mark Bradkey, they played in the NBA a little bit, and ended up going back and doing a summer league with the Lakers. And so the next 4 or 5 years, I did the NBA summer league, and just like I said, I was an undersized 4 and underskilled 3. And it turned out that I made a career, and I made a great career traveling the world, getting paid to put a ball in a hole. I mean, it's about as simple as it gets. I was a traveling salesman, and I had to be where the money was. And that was a matter of my agent calling me saying, hey, it's Monday. I got a contract in Poland and Turkey and Australia. One's $100,000, one's $200,000, one's $300,000. Which one do you want? And I said, of course, I want the $300,000 one. He says, all right, well, they want you there Thursday. Get on a plane, pack up for 10 months, you're going to be over there. But little do I know that if you sign a contract in Turkey, you're probably not going to get all $300,000. If you're going to go to Poland or Spain, somewhere that's organized, Germany, you're going to probably get 200,000, and you're going to get every dollar. Australia's less money, but it's also summertime down there. So there's a lot of different options to be able to weigh, and what's the overall best suited team for your future of your career.
Wow. So with those realistic numbers that you just said, that could...
Yeah, very much so. I mean, there's players over there, the top players are making 2.3, 2.5 million euros. But the average player, you know, I made probably an average of about 200,000, 225 a year. And so I went to Istanbul, Turkey. I did Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Then I did 2 years in Slovenia, which was the EuroLeague and the ULEB Cup. Then I went 2 years in Naples, Italy. Then I did Bologna, Virtus Bologna. Manu Ginobili played for this team. I played for him after that team 2 years after he did. Ended up going to Croatia, playing the EuroLeague for Cibona. Went back to Bologna and ended up leaving and going to Milan. And then I went to Greece. And then when we go to these different countries, we play in them, we're also traveling to different countries. So it could be Monday in Slovenia, Tuesday Slovenia, get on a plane, fly to Germany to play a game in Russia, come back Thursday after the game that night, fly back into Slovenia, get on a bus, take a 6 to 8 hour bus to another game, play a game Saturday, and then come back after the game and arrive 6 in the morning Sunday, and then you get up and do practice all over again. So I did that for 10 months. So I've been Israel, Spain, Norway, South America, China, Australia, pretty much everywhere but Africa and the Middle East. Israel, Tel Aviv, Moscow, the Red Square, Poland, Slovakia,
Wow.
and everywhere in between. I did that in 12 years, and you got to do it when you're younger.
Those are some of the most fascinating places in the whole world, and wow, how lucky you were to be able to do what you love doing and playing there. If you couldn't do it in the NBA, how terrific it was to be able to do it there. Do you have a couple of really outstanding moments, either on the court or off the court, from those years?
Yeah, there's a couple stories, and it's not so much around basketball. It kind of is it was after a game. We were in Greece, and, you know, it's kind of funny, you know, you see these fights over in Israel, or not Israel, like Ireland, when they have the rival teams and the soccer fans, and they're always kind of, the police are there to separate people and do that type of stuff. Well, in Istanbul, Turkey, it's a little bit, in Greece, it can get very chaotic. So there's a team, Galatasaray and Fenerbahce, and they've had a rivalry since 1850s. So it's about 160 years of not really liking each other. So we're playing in a game, and obviously it's a close game, and the fans get rivalry. And when you think about it, on the fans, you have one team over here, and you have another team over here, and in the middle, there's a line of police with riot gear going from the bottom all the way to the top. And so I've been hit with lighters, I've been hit with coins, I've been hit with yogurt. We've had flares thrown onto the court where it's burning in the middle. I've had a fan run out on the court, grab the referee and shake him, and all they do is they grab him and they push him back up into the stands. So we were in a small kind of a gym in the kind of the eastern side of Turkey, and we were playing, and I mean, obviously the same thing happened. They're throwing bits of stone and they're doing all kinds of craziness. So we go into the locker room, and what happens is we are on their territory. Their fans thought they were knocking on the window of our gym. It was their home team. So they started throwing rocks and Molotov cocktails. So they started throwing the glass. They broke the glass. They threw a Molotov cocktail into the locker room. It exploded. They grabbed their gear and they ran into our locker room, which was supposed to be, they were thinking it was us. Then they found out that we were both in there, and they started breaking our windows and throwing Molotov cocktails. So we all ran into the shower until the fans and the police kind of started getting things kind of chaotically calmed down. So that's probably one of the more chaotic situations that we've been in. But at the same time, there's also situations where, you know, these teams won't pay you for the last 4 months of your contract, and these, you know, the players are like, well, what do you want to do? What's the best thing to do? It's like, well, you're not going to see your money. Basically what you say is we just charge it to the game. You're never going to see that money. And that's one of the reasons why I've started Euro Hoop Life, is to be able to kind of empower players to be able to have the ability to kind of retract or kind of go against the teams and be able to leave some information for future players that are coming. But what happens is we all kind of gather together, and I've actually witnessed this. They give you a car and an apartment when they get there. When we get these cars, they haven't paid you your last $40,000, $60,000. So what you do is you drive the car to the airport, you're finished your season, you got your ticket, you drive your car up to the curb, and you get the keys, you throw them in the bushes, and you leave the car right there at the airport, grab your bags, get on your flight, and go home. So a week later, the team calls in, hey, Bennett, where's the car? Oh, man, you guys still owe me about $40,000, $60,000, right? Yeah. When do you think I can get that? Oh, don't worry about that. We'll send that to you. Where's the car? Well, I'll let you know where the car is when I get my money. Those types of things. So there's kind of those little childish games you have to play, and so those are some of the things you have to deal with when you're over in Europe or Middle East. Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell me more about EHL, and you know, of course, you started talking about it, but how deep can that go? What kind of things are you doing for the players, and who knows about you already?
Kind of a brief little overview of exactly what it is. You know, like Angie's List, you have a contractor's website where people can evaluate and rate contractors, but at the same time, it's very much like Yelp. You know, I was over in southern Italy and had brought this team from November till May, brought them from 16th place to the Final Four, and they didn't pay us for March, actually February, March, April, and May. And what happens is in the league, they only have to pay you 10% of that monthly salary to not be under violation under FIBA. So they had basically just sent us these little baby checks of $1,100, of $3,000, whatever it was, when they owed us $13,000, $15,000 that month. So when we get there, I was kind of sitting there, and this is 2008, 2009, and I came and said, this isn't right. How do we empower the player to be able to change the mindset and the processes in which players are respected and their contracts are respected, because right now they're not worth the paper they're written on. Teams just say, hey, come to practice, don't worry, we'll pay you next Wednesday. Next Wednesday comes, hey, don't worry, it's a vacation, national holiday, come back 2 weeks, but come to practice and give 100%, but I guarantee you we'll pay you. So I said, I remember a basketball player, David Rivers, he was one of the top point guards in Europe, and he had a group of basketball players that were coming around to different gyms and saying, hey, we're trying to start a union. Here's my business card. Go to the website. And this was back in 99, 2000. So this was just kind of the up and coming of technology and the things that we're obviously doing right now and speaking to each other. And it just became too much room and board and hotels and gas money and flights, and it just kind of fell apart. So I said, well, a union is a little bit more work and maintenance, and kind of you got to involve a lot of people and a lot of different procedures and lawmakers. So I said, well, what about just information? So I said, well, let's deal with past, present, and future players. Past players who have entrepreneurial spirit. Current players need to be able to find the best, most accurate information for these teams that they're about to sign a contract with, and future players that don't feel like they're given enough information or knowledge on the teams that they're being offered contracts. So I said, well, let's deal with past, present, and future, at the same time giving information based off of past players' experiences on those individual teams. And so me and my friend Chris Frost at West County Net have designed a website. We're just in soft launch phase right now, so we have about another month before we're going to be going swimming from the mountaintops and saying, hey, come players, come fill out your profiles and let us know about these different teams. I mean, that's kind of what it is a nutshell. It's a Yelp and an Angie's List for professional athletes and international basketball players.
And I'm kind of honored that you and I have gotten together, and we've come to an agreement that one of the ways that the players can be helped is to have a relationship trainer, a relationship coach, a leadership coach on board your team. So we're going to be working together. I'm going to be part of the EHL, and I'm really thrilled about that because you're a total gentleman, and I love what you're doing, the service that you're doing, and I appreciate that. And I love being a part of something that's helping not just people, but pro players who imagine going to Poland Croatia, and putting yourself in vulnerable positions where you're not from that country, and some of the owners think that they can do whatever they want, and it's really great that you have come up with this wonderful answer.
Thank you.
To these problems. And just a little bit of a sidetrack, just this past weekend, we talked a little earlier that another pro NFL football player has gotten himself in trouble.
Seems to be a weekly occurrence.
It seems to be a weekly occurrence, and my numbers are that since the very, very beginning of 2014, that 34 or 38 players have been arrested in the NFL alone for violent activities. Some of it's for pot or marijuana possession, but a lot of it is domestic violence and fighting and bar fights. It always seems to be around domestic violence and bars and nightclubs.
Yeah.
So you and I are going to get together, and we're going to do whatever we can through what you're doing, what I'm doing, to inform players. It doesn't have to be that way. So I'm thrilled to be able to work with you and to see how far we can get the word out to help players.
Well, that's what it's about. Like you said, it's making bad decisions in bad situations. I mean, it's sometimes you got your chest puffed up, and sports is such an aggressive thing, and to have someone like yourself and say, hey, you're on the basketball court, you're allowed to physically exert yourself, but in the real world, this is something that you're not allowed to be able to do. So it's not so much just about domestic, it's about relationships with referees, coaches, different countries, accepting different cultures. There's a wide variety, and that's kind of where you come into play, saying, hey, here's a certain mindset you need to be able to have because you are in the limelight. And it's not even something where a fight's going to happen. It may not even be with you. You just happen to be there, and your name is going to be in the news. So now your name is strewn across the news and media, and it just makes you look bad.
That's so true, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because someone who can sort of has more self-confidence in himself and can raise their self-esteem, they're going to be better communicators with other players. They're going to be better communicators with teammates, with the manager, the coach, the referees, the owners. So it just makes a world of difference when they could be seen as, he's a decent guy, and, don't fool with him. He's a decent guy, rather than being known as a hothead or someone who makes trouble. And so I'm really absolutely thrilled to be able to work on that with you and all the other folks at Euro Hoop Life.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Bruce.
So what other things do you see in the future for Euro Hoop Life? What other things can pro players, fans of pro players, what else can they expect from you?
Well, let me just I'll go into brief details of exactly what the three sections are. So we have a section called, it's kind of the creative corner, and it's based for ex-professional athletes. Right now it's mostly basketball players, but majority of people have that ability to take sports and have it pay for their education. Then they transfer that to having sports paid for their lifestyle and be able to get paid for something that they love doing and that they're good at. At the same time, it helps them become an entrepreneur and keep that motivation of what got them going. One thing that I always knew is, and I can raise my hand because I had a personal issue with it, was that transition from professional athlete to the real world. You're spent since the age of, like I talked in the beginning of the conversation, from the age of 5 playing soccer and basketball. Well, what do? Do you sell cars? Do you do insurance? Do you network marketing? What do you do exactly to be able to say, hey, you know what? I wake up every morning excited to do this, and it's been basketball, sports, but what's the next transition out of that world into it? And so we have an area for people to be able to advertise and market their stuff, writing books, radio shows, motivational speakers, owning franchises, insurance, financial intelligence. So we have an eclectic group of professional people that all come from a very good foundation of not, hey, pay me and I'll take care of you. It's, hey, I want to mentor you. I want to help you through this process. And at the same time, I'm building my network of people, which is honestly nowadays very easy to do. At the same time, very beneficial to yourself and your future. To transition to the current players, like I said, this is where the website really comes into play, because it's going to be past players are going to have profiles set up, and they're going to be able to say, hey, Bennett Davison played for this team in this year. He was signed for $200,000. He only got paid $150,000. They still owe me $50,000. Did they try to get in contact with you? And it's just going to be a lot of organized drop-down data to be able to collect. In doing so, we're going to be able to provide players that have contracts in front of them saying, hey, is this a good contract for me, or is this a better contract for me? It's less money, but it's going to be a better overall situation, and be able to communicate with other players that just say maybe played 1 year or 2 years ago. And then at the same time, we have the players that are coming out of college, the ones that aren't the blue chip players, the ones that don't have people flocking at their feet, agents saying, hey, I want to work for you, I want to work for you, but the ones that say, hey, I feel like I'm stagnant. A natural transition, or the natural movement of a basketball player, is to move forward, backwards, left, right, up, and down. And in doing so, sometimes when they feel stagnant, they're not being seen. They're spending money at these basketball camps, but there's a lot more effective ways to be able to market yourself and keep yourself in that circle of life of continuing to get a basketball contract. So what we've decided to create is an EHL Consulting. EHL Consulting consists of marketing tools, a network of people, getting a player's evaluation, and those types of things. So, reach out to us on EuroHoopLife.com. You'll find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We're currently working with DeCorey Jones. He's our marketing director. He has a degree in sports marketing and advertising and management. And at the same time, he's gotten 5 contracts and never had an agent represent him, because he's proactive and he's doing things the right way. So that was kind of past, present, and future players. We have something for them, and it's like I said, it's just building up a network and information surrounded, and it's a community of basketball players.
So what do you hope from this interview? What would you like to see happen? Would you like people to contact you? Who would you like to be contacting you? Agents, managers, coaches? Who would you like to contact?
We have future players, past players that have a viable resource, a talent to be able, a gift to be able to communicate and help players. Current players that go to the website and kind of poke around and go to check out different teams. Manage agents, we're always looking, we're trying to be able to create an assembly line, a very effective evaluation for agents to be able to evaluate and say, hey, you know what, I think I can place this player, I don't think I can. I just see that the majority of what agents do, and managers and coaches, is you've got to go, you're spending your whole life on planes in Vegas and Los Angeles and Croatia and Slovenia and Denver, and you're doing all this traveling. There's more effective ways to be able to go out there. There's still nothing better than actually shaking someone's hand and saying, hey, hello, rubbing elbows with the right people, but to be able to have an assembly line of effective evaluation for players, that's what I'm trying to be able to create.
Well, it's great rubbing elbows with you, even if it's from over Google, and I'm sure we'll get to meet very, very soon. Anything else that you'd like to tell us before we go?
No, just like I said, you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, EuroHoopLife.com or .org. And like I said, we're here. We're a hub for international basketball players. That's what we're here for. That's what we're about. No question is too silly to ask. And if I don't have the answer, I know somebody that does have the answer. That's kind of it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Well,
thank you.
And like I said, it's an honor to be a part of what you're doing, and I look forward to doing things like working one-on-one with players where they can, bring me on board. Hey, listen, players have coaches for everything. They've been coached. They've been told what to do, where to go, when to eat, how to eat.
Used to it.
Yeah, you're used to it, except there's one place where players don't have coaches, and it's such an important place, which is their personal lives. And that's where I hope to be able to come on board and to coach them in a place that's so important. I mean, there's so much potential for embarrassment and for making mistakes and picking the wrong girl and going to the wrong places. And so I'm going to be on board to work one-on-one with players. I also want to try to get together with teams and make presentations to teams and to players.
Yep.
I totally believe that I can make.
You have an ebook out?
Yep, and the ebook Body Traders, and I'm gonna write another book that's much more aligned towards pro athletes and what they have to do and how to keep out of trouble. So thank you so much for being my guest on this show, and I hope that continued success, and I look forward to doing a lot more with you. Thank you, Bennett.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.